On today's Writing Done Right, we want to talk about the files that you will need to bring to the distributor if you are choosing to self publish your books. We won't get into all the details, ins and outs of the different distributors out there. We're just going to talk briefly about the individual files. Thanks for checking out this video by Writing Done Right. I'm Thomas Morosky, an author and a technology consultant. And I guess today we get to join the trend of holding the microphone, like many people have these days, because it is super noisy where I'm at. But if I set my settings really low and talk right into it like this, the audio's okay. Do a little bit of processing on this one. Maybe we'll have to do a video about how to clean up audio. I don't know. But anyway, we do want to talk about self-publishing and what files do you need in the event that you are choosing to go that route. We've been talking a little bit about the self-publishing direction and things like that of recently. We are going to talk briefly about print books, ebooks, and audiobooks today. So the first question we want to ask is, where are we publishing at? As I mentioned, there are a number of different distributors. The ones I personally use is KDP, which gets me into the Amazon resources, but then I use Ingram Spark to put me everywhere else. That gives me the best royalties. You can go directly KDP, use the expanded distribution, but there are a lot of downsides to that. One of those is bookstores don't like that because even if they have to buy the books, they're supporting their biggest competitor, which is Amazon. The other reason is the extended distribution royalty prices on Amazon is a fraction of what you will get if you are putting your books also other places. And you can put them at multiple places, but you do have to always have your own ISBN, which generally is the best way to do it anyway. As far as audiobooks, I also use a dual strategy. I use ACX, which is Amazon's, also owned by Amazon. That gets you onto Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. And I use Findaway Voices, which is now owned by Spotify. That gets you everywhere else, including iTunes. And actually, iTunes will use Findaway Voices if you're using both ACX and Findaway, because the royalties are higher for you as the author. And so those are the directions I'm going. So now we're going to talk about the individual types of books, because the files are relative to those particular differences. So covering print books first. Now this will be hardcover and softcover books. Note that you do need different cover designs for a hardcover than you do a softcover. And as you're developing your templates, you'll be able to grab that information that you need. So as far as the files that you need, you're going to need a full wraparound cover. This includes the front cover, the side binding, and the back. The best way to grab these is the template generators. Both Ingram and KDP have template generators. Most likely the other distribution networks also have those templates as well. Now, as far as the cost, let's get into the cost of some of these things. If you're creating your book, like you're self-publishing, but you want to do it right, you're hiring a professional to do these, you can expect to pay probably between $300 and $350 for a good full wraparound cover. That's also going to include the cover that you're going to need for an ebook and possibly an audiobook as well. And so you can get them a little bit cheaper, but $300 is a pretty good range of what you'd expect to pay if you're looking for hiring out the cover design. And that is a good thing to hire out if you don't feel comfortable with the editing software. You do need that in a JPEG file that is high resolution. We're talking 300 dpi. This is a very large file, several megabytes. You also will need to bring an interior design page. So this is how the book is formatted on the inside. You know, we don't just spit text into a machine and all of a sudden the printer prints out an amazingly published book. You actually have to put some work into it. Again, this does take some time. The interior design is going to be a PDF. It is going to have embedded fonts, so make sure that you check your software application, make sure you are embedding your fonts, and follow all of the guidelines for margins and bleed areas and things like that. So there are a number of things to keep in mind here, which also means that hiring somebody to do it might be a good step if you're not comfortable with it. Of course, you can do these yourself. If you are hiring this out, you can probably expect to pay somewhere between $200 and $400 for an interior design, which usually is based on how many pages, how many chapters, and also how many references, and do you want side columns. There's a lot of things that can go into printing a book, and you want to make sure you're covering for as many of those as possible. So moving on to ebooks next. The ebook, of course, is the fastest growing book sector. I don't know, audiobooks might be up there as well, but ebooks, you can expect to get a lot of sales on ebooks if you're doing it right. And as far as what you need to bring to the distribution networks, you need a front cover of the ebook. So this is the size that's effectively formatted for a book. It's not the full wraparound cover. Now, typically, if you're hiring somebody to do your full book cover, they'll get you that ebook cover that you need is going to be included in there. Basically, you take the file and you crop it off, but you do want to change it for the size guidelines for a web. See, when you're printing a book cover, this is why you need that high DPI, the high resolution JPEG for the print cover, 300 DPI. That is what you need to print and have a good print design. But as far as ebooks, it's about cutting your size down a little bit so you're not distributing massive amounts more data than you need to. So for the you save it for the web, which is typically 72 DPI, and you can get away with a lot smaller of a file size for this. But again, check those guidelines. Usually I put mine about 1,000, maybe 1,000 height, maybe 800 pixels height, and then what about 500 wide generally is good enough to cover it. So that's not too far out of the ordinary. So check those guidelines. Now, as far as the book you're uploading, generally the EPUB is what you're going to want to use. Now, if you're doing exclusive to Amazon, you might use their ebook formatter, which I wouldn't really recommend. It doesn't really produce amazing results. It gets you an ebook, but it doesn't have the attractive appeal that many other books might have. But the EPUB format is the open source format for doing an ebook, the EPUB form, and everybody accepts that. So Amazon does that, Ingram does that, most of the other places do that. And if you're selling your books individually as digital files on your site, the EPUB is probably what you're going to want to use, as every e-reader can read an EPUB format. So these are used by all the distributors. They're used by all the different e-readers out there. Your phone apps all accept an EPUB, and you can expect to pay between $150 and $300 to get a good ebook formatted properly. That is your basic guidelines. Now we'll move on to audiobooks. So audiobooks, the image covers that you need for those, they are square like a CD cover. I don't know, why didn't we accept the cassettes, which are more like a book size cover? I don't know, but we didn't as an industry. We use squares, usually about 3,000 to 4,000 pixels, and you do want it to be the 72 DPI at that pixel range. That gets you a bigger file than the ebook cover, but it does give you something that is not as massive as the print, but it does want to be square. It does want to have that 3,000 pixel to adjust for all the different devices people use. Typically, once again, your cover designs are going to be a little bit different from your main book designs because of the difference in aspect ratios. But if you are talking to your cover designer, it may not cost a lot more money for them to readjust everything for the square audiobook file as well. The files you need, you want to do MP3 files. Once again, check the guidelines, but by and large, you want 4,400 hertz, 4.1 kilohertz. You want a 3.5 dB, minus 3.5 dB peak max in your file, minus 18 to 23 RMS. And that is something that you can get inside of. If you look at the Audacity videos that I have, it'll tell you how to get those. And a floor around minus 60 dB. Now, as far as your pricing on this is complicated. It's not a simple how much are you expecting? Because typically with this, unless you are really good at doing the audio recordings yourself or you want to get into that, typically you're going to hire out a narrator. So when you're bringing your files into your distribution network, you need to specify not only the author, which is typically yourself, you also need to specify the narrator. Now, both ACX and Find a Way, they have resources where you can work directly with a narrator for a cut of the royalties instead of an upfront cost. So if you're paying an upfront cost, you could possibly be paying thousands of dollars. And additionally, you have to pay to edit them. You have to meet the editorial standards for this. Now, we show you on our tutorials how to do that, but at some point in time, we need to look at the cost factor. This is why you find not every book is released as an audiobook. They are a lot more complicated to do, a lot more challenging to put together, and they cost a lot more money to do. Now, the advantage is that depending on whom you're working with, check with your publisher as well. They might already have deals. I know one of the publishers I work with, they have deals put together with narrators, and usually you're going to share a cut of your royalties in order to pull this off. But if you do want to keep all those royalties for yourself, expect to shell out several $1,000s to get your files set up for your audiobooks. So there is a little bit about the files that you need to bring to the publisher if you're going to self-publish your book, your distribution network, we should say, whether it's KDP or Ingram that I use, and there's a number of other ones out there that you can explore as well. So hopefully this tip helped you out. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and I hope that this video has helped you to get your writing done right.